Well, good morning, everyone. Yesterday, I introduced chapters 43 and 44 of Genesis with another Narnia story, the story of the undragoning of Eustace, which is a great example of how we cannot change ourselves, but Jesus must do it. We're going to see that today in our story, particularly in the lives of Jacob and Judah, the other two main characters in this story. At the end of chapter 42, we had seen that they had begun to see just how awful they really are. Jacob coming face to face with his idolatry of Benjamin. Judah, along with the other brothers, coming face to face with just how selfish and unloving he really is. But they can't change themselves. God's going to have to do it. And he's going to use the clause of providence and the clause of guilt to do it. Today we're going to look particularly at Jacob's part of the story. God is using providence, which is his control over all that's going on, to back Jacob into a corner and tear off his dragon skin of idolatry. You see, at the end of chapter 42, the story appears to be at a stalemate. Joseph wants to see Benjamin. Jacob is unwilling to let him go. But the thing is, Jacob's true opponent in this chess match is not Joseph. It's God. And God, as a truly masterful chess master, has been moving his pieces through providence, leaving Jacob with only two options. He can either give up and let all of them die, including Benjamin, or he can let go of Benjamin and trust God. The chapter begins by saying, "Now the famine was severe in the land, and when they had eaten the grain that they had bought from Egypt, their father said to them, 'Go again and buy us a little grain.' And Judah said to him, 'The man solemnly warned us, saying, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you.'" So apparently they've eaten up all the food they bought on their first trip to Egypt. And Judah actually says later that they could have made it there and back again twice by this point in time. So it's been months, and they need more food. God is backing Jacob into a corner with his chess pieces. You see, Jacob has been stalling. At the end of 42, he could afford to wait because they had a fresh load of food, and he could deny what needed to happen. He could hold tight to his idol, and he could just hope that it would all go away. Maybe the famine would end before they needed more food, but God's not going to let that happen. And Judah actually stands up to Jacob and tells him they will not go without Benjamin, which is a glimmer of hope for Judah as well. We'll talk about that in another Devo. You see, in a truly masterful chess strategy, a master closes off all avenues of escape until his opponent is left with only two options. Either he can make the move that the chess master wants him to make, or give up everything. The clause of providence, God's control over all that's been going on, has been doing this with Jacob. As Judah says in verse 8, "Send the boy with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you, and also our little ones." Jacob has only two options left now. He must either trust God and give Benjamin into his hands, or let them all die, including Benjamin. He's trapped, and it hurts. As with Eustace, the claws of God's providence are digging so deep that Jacob feels them in his heart. As we said yesterday, God has to show us that we are slaves to our idols. And that is what God is showing Jacob. Will he die and let everyone else die, or will he let go of the idol? Well, we see in verses 11 to 14 that God's claws have been successful in tearing off that dragon skin of idolatry. You see, he tells them to go. And then he prays this wonderful prayer in verse 14. "May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, and may he send back your other brother and Benjamin. As for me, if I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved." It's really actually quite a wonderful prayer. It may not be as enthusiastic as we might hope it would be, but God shows us there that he's changing Jacob's heart. For the first time in this story, Jacob uses the name El Shaddai, God Almighty, which is the name God uses for himself when he made his covenant with Abraham, when he made it with Isaac, and then when he made it again with Jacob, changing Jacob's name to Israel. Israel is using this name, and by doing so, he is showing us that he's finally beginning to trust God to fulfill his promises no matter what happens. And that final statement, "If I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved," it sounds somber, and it really is somber, but it's actually quite faithful. He's not saying that he's going to die if he loses Benjamin, like he said at the end of chapter 37 and at the end of chapter 42. He's handing them over to God and then actually saying that he's willing to live with whatever God decides. That's faith. It may not be enthusiastic, but it's faith. God has torn off the dragon skin of idolatry, and the cure has begun in Israel's heart. Youth, this is how God works in our lives sometimes. He uses providence to break down our idols and tear off that dragon skin. He may be doing it in your life right now while you're at home. I know in a sense he's doing it in my life as I feel like I'm out of control of everything because I have an idolatry of control. And yes, it hurts. Remember, this chess master is not like normal chess masters. We don't love our chess pieces when we play chess. We don't care anything about them. They're just pawns. No pun intended, I suppose. But God does love us. He sent Jesus to die for us, which is how much he loves us. That means we can trust his strategy, even though the claws of providence are digging into our very hearts, like he did with Eustace, like he did with Israel. You see, here, he's freed Israel, or beginning to free him, from his slavery to his idol. And that's what God is doing with us. He's freeing us from slavery to idols. The cure has begun. You guys think about that, and I'll see you again tomorrow.